No pressure, you said this is the first ever TEDx, and I'm the first person to do this at Wesleyan. So they told me there was no pressure, so I'm going to act like there's no pressure. So today's topic that I chose was about hate and how hate hurts. Now, the reason why I decided to do this, because of what I do for a living, I'm sure you can imagine with social media, we see a lot of hate online all the time, right? And we see a lot of hate around us with politics, with everything. So what I wanted to do was address that today. Why do people hate people who they don't even know? Now, I know sometimes we're all guilty of this. I'm sure we've been scrolling and said, ugh, I hate that person. I hate this, I hate that, and for no real reason. So, this is my first time using a clicker. Let's hope I do it right. I was also inspired a couple of years ago when I went to the Women's March. I went with a couple of my friends, and that was after Donald Trump got elected, and we were all like, oh my God, what's about to happen, right? And so at first I was gonna drive down. People were like, that's not a good idea. There's gonna be so much traffic going to DC. So instead, we ended up going on a bus with a lot of different women from Atlantic Records. Now, while we were going, we decided, let's make a pact with each other, right? Nobody's gonna say anything bad about anybody for this one day. Has anybody ever tried that or thought about that? Because it's really not that easy of a thing to do. And I'm ashamed to say it, but I think that with everything that we see, like we see all the gossip sites, we see the news. I do the news every morning when I'm at work, I do the rumors, and a lot of the big stories are focused around negativity. So for that one day, everybody was nice to each other. The line for the porta potties, hundreds of people, still nobody was rude. I think my friend cut the line, nobody said anything to her. So for one day we didn't do that, and I have to tell you, it was a really gratifying feeling to have one day of no negative feeling. Now when I say hate, I don't mean, oh, we disagree with each other. I don't mean we're critical of each other. When I say hate, I mean like consumed with an intense, passionate dislike for somebody. Now imagine how hurtful that is. It's like a disease for the person who is feeling that towards someone who might not even know, for the most part, that you exist. So what are the main reasons that people hate each other? Well, if you ask somebody, what will they say is the number one reason? Is jealousy, right? Somebody hates you because they're jealous. They don't understand why you have the position that you have. They don't understand why you have the job you have, why you have the money that you have, why you have the possessions that you have, why you have the accolades that you have. Why is this person doing so well and I'm not? Now, the ideal thing to do would be to use that to motivate yourself. I see this person doing that. That means I can make it happen too. But for some people, they don't think like that. Some people say, well, this person has a nice car, they have a great job, I hate them. And I mean, I've experienced that myself. When I first got my job in radio, I had no experience in radio. I had a marketing background. And people I thought were my friends were like, oh, you know, she only got that job because she had to sleep with somebody, or she did this, she did that. And I was like, you know what? I have to interpret that as what it is. It was a bit of jealousy because there's people that went to school for radio. There's people that worked and did interviews and tried out for the job and didn't get it. Now, another reason why people hate is fear. Now, let's talk about some numbers. As far as hate groups, did you know that a study released by the Southern Poverty Law Center found the number of hate groups in the US has risen by 20% over the past 3 years? There's been 954 hate groups operating in the US as of last year. Is that crazy? That you could hate somebody that you don't even know because of their race, their religion, their sexuality? And what I've realized is that fear comes from ignorance. If you don't know somebody, you're not familiar with them, maybe you're scared that they're coming here to take something you feel like is yours. So instead of saying to yourself, okay, the weakness in me is fear, you say, I hate them. Well, Michael Moore at the Tribeca Film Festival said, I think the equation is simple. It's the American equation. Dumb down the population and make them ignorant and stupid. Ignorance leads to fear, fear leads to hate. I hate that I have to talk about Donald Trump. But I mean, he said Trump knew that part of the equation really well, and hate leads to violence. Now, we've all seen that happen time and time again. I'm sure fresh in our minds is what happened in Charlottesville. We've seen the Ku Klux Klan rallies. We've seen all of these things happen, and it stems out of fear. Now, Donald Trump, and this is the last Donald Trump reference, when he announced he was running for president, he said, the US has become a dumping ground for everybody else's problems. And he said, when Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're not sending you. That's to make it feel like this person is other than you, so it's us versus them. They're not sending you. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're a rapist, and some, I assume, are good people. So what does that mean? And I know we all remember that speech, right, when he said that, and he's still spewing that rhetoric. So that's to instill fear in you. So now when you see somebody coming here from Mexico, you assume, if you're ignorant, that they're a rapist, they're a criminal, they're a drug dealer. Maybe you assume we don't want any Muslims here because they're terrorists, because someone told you that, and you're ignorant and you don't know better. So the fear that you have of other people makes you want to build a wall and keep people out. All right. Another thing that causes hate is repressed feelings. Sometimes there's something in yourself that you're not happy with, you're not comfortable with, something in yourself that you hate. And instead of saying, okay, I want to express myself and address what's wrong with me, or maybe something that I want to let out to the world and be proud of, instead of you repress those feelings and you hate people who represent that feeling to you. An example, according to the 2012 study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, there are higher levels of homophobia in those who have unacknowledged feelings of attraction toward the same sex. Now, you guys have seen examples of politicians who are anti-LGBTQ rights, right? And you've seen examples of religious leaders, maybe people in the neighborhood, people in school who are homophobic. But the real issue, according to this study, individuals who identify as straight but in psychological tests show a strong attraction to the same sex may be threatened by gays and lesbians because homosexuals remind them of similar tendencies within themselves. Now, I have an example for this too, because I have examples of everything. Wesley Goodman, he's in Ohio. He was a politician in Ohio, and he actually had to step down. And you know why? Because he was upholding those values of family. He said a family means a husband and a wife. He was anti-LGBTQ rights. And what do you think happened? If you had to guess. Yeah. That's right. He actually got caught having an inappropriate sexual relationship with somebody in his office, and he was married to a woman. So you can imagine what that's like. And turns out he was on Craigslist, and he was having random hookups. And the reason why he hated gays so much was because he himself was gay and hadn't dealt with those issues. All right, another thing that makes people hate is their upbringing. Now, I think we all know nobody's born hating anyone, right? Kids are the most innocent people. They don't know anything about hate. They kind of love everybody. Maybe not everybody, because I didn't let anybody just pick me up. But your upbringing can mean a lot. And sometimes it might not even be blatant discrimination in the household. My parents will kill me for this, but even me growing up, like my dad's Asian, my mom is black. And you know how families make all kinds of jokes and stereotypes and say things that if anybody heard outside of the house, you would be like, oh my God, please, Dad, shut up. So that's what my house was like, you know? And not all the time, but there's just certain things that people say, and it might be a joke, but if you're young and you pick up on those things, think about kids coming to school, and they say things that they heard at home, and you're like, they didn't just make that up. They heard that from somewhere. So a lot of people have these feelings of hate because of their upbringing. Also, insecurity and self-esteem. Sometimes people feel like in order for me to feel like I'm important and I'm powerful, that means that you have to be less powerful. So they'll put you down in order to make themselves feel better. So people feel like they have to join certain groups, go with the crowd, all because they have their own issues with insecurity and self-esteem. All right, so what can you do about it? Because it's kind of depressing when you think about all of this hate in the world. And honestly, like, we talk about this all the time at work. Social media has made it really difficult because I look at kids today and I talk a lot to kids, and they talk a lot about bullying and being depressed and suffering from anxiety and people saying nasty things about them, things going viral. You guys are pretty young, so I didn't have to deal with that when I was growing up. We didn't have, when I was at Wesleyan, we had computers, but we didn't have Twitter, we didn't have Instagram, we didn't have Facebook. Things didn't go viral, so a lot of what we did, a lot of people's criticisms, it was just to your face. And how often does that really happen, right? So, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., I have decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear. It is really, really, really dangerous for you to be a hateful person. That kind of festers inside of you. It is like a disease because it can eat you up. Instead of you worrying about what can I do to be a better person, you're too concerned about what other people are doing and how much you hate what they're doing instead of saying, what can I be doing? Now, I want to just go on to say this as well. As far as hate, when you feel like you're hating somebody, and nobody is innocent of this, okay? Everybody has had those feelings. When you feel that way, you need to have some self-reflection. That's when it's time for you to look at yourself and say, why am I having these intense, strong feelings about somebody that I don't know that's not even affecting my life? And for you, you might need to say, okay, maybe I'm not happy with where I am. Maybe there's some feelings with myself that I have not yet addressed. And it's really important that we do that. I've made a habit of, whenever I see somebody I know being really supportive, I don't say negative things to people. Now, there's a difference. You can criticize people, you can give feedback, but to say and be hateful is a completely different thing. So I just want to differentiate that. And I want to end it with a quote from the Dalai Lama. It is far more useful to be aware of a single shortcoming in ourselves than it is to be aware of 1,000 in somebody else. So I just wanted to come out and give that message because I think it's important because of everything that's going on in the world, and it's important for our kids growing up in the world today, and it will be important for you. So next time you feel like somebody is having these feelings about you, just wish them well because it is a disease. Get them some antibiotics because it's not you, and don't you be that person either. Thank you.